Guys, welcome to another episode of Uncommon Interviews. I'm here today with Andy Zawacki, and a longtime friend. We've done some work together. We've done some ministry together, and so I wanted to welcome Andy, taking some time out of his schedule today. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Right on, right on. Just like our past interviews, we been touching base with guys, the everyday guys, dealing with everyday issues, but in an uncommon way. And Andy, tell us a little bit about like your professional job and your background.
Sure. I am currently the head of school at Arborbrook Christian Academy, which is in the village of Wesley Chapel, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I arrived here 2 years ago. My career before that, I worked for a ministry called Back to the Bible. But before that, I was in local church ministry, 15 years at a local church in upstate New York. And before that, I was in education. So my career has kind of come full circle.
I cannot believe it's already been 2 years at that school.
I know, it's amazing. Well, I say 2 years. It's really been like 19 months, but I'm in my second school year, so I say 2 years.
Right. Well, good. Andy and I met when he was working at Back to the Bible.
Right.
I was working on a project, and I still am actually, with Engage Art. And Andy was helping us with the app development. So I was very happy when he moved over to Arborbrook, and he reached out to me to keep that relationship going. So.
Oh, yeah. And you've been a big help to us over here. So thank you for your expertise in the area of media. It's very helpful.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And so today we're going to ask Andy some of the similar questions we've done in the past. We try to keep them kind of the same, just so we can get a viewpoint of how different guys handle all these same issues. And so our first question is always the one I find most interesting. Did you have a good role model from a parenting or dad standpoint growing up?
Yeah, define good. That's always the tough thing. So
something you want to mimic, I guess that would be the case.
Yeah, my dad was an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic at the age of, when I was 9, he went into AA and had a bit of a transformation of life after that, actually prayed the prayer to receive the Lord, and had a real life change for a period of time. Unfortunately, made some really bad life choices. And by the time I was 16, he was no longer in my life. He had separated from my mom and kind of had gone off the deep end. And so it was a real turning point for me, a difficult time anyway when you're 16. But he was definitely, it was a hard period of time for me to adjust in my mind, a loving God, but yet a dad who I'd seen him do some great things and was someone I wanted to emulate for a period of time, but then turned his back on all of that and went in a completely different direction. So really tough. I did have like I went to a Christian high school and I was in church. So I had other Christian leaders, pastors, youth leaders, and some teachers that really were good role models for me and helped me through that process of dealing with my anger issues with my dad.
Right. This is such a common thread. So far we've done about 4 or 5 interviews, and they range. And so far, and not surprisingly, no dad gets it right. Right? We're always working progress.
Always. And I think we all, looking back, we all have a dad wound of some sort. And I think that's a good thing, because no dad is going to be perfect, but our dad should, push us toward God, who is our perfect dad. And it took me a couple years, maybe more like 5 years, but that's what my situation did for me, is it brought me to understand my Heavenly Father a whole lot better than I had when my physical dad was in my life.
Right. Yeah, always I'm a big fan of saying out of dysfunction comes purpose,
Yeah.
And so
for sure,
my dad grew up in a situation, he was kind of on his own at a very young age, didn't his dad died when he was very young, and
Yeah.
so his stepdad really didn't work out in the situation to help him grow into probably the man that he wanted to be, and so
Yeah.
that just perpetuated throughout his life, and I can see that in other men in that range that they were probably exposed to something that changed them forever, and instead of coming to Christ maybe at an early age, may have either came later on or not at all, and did not pursue trying to be the husband, dad, or leader they were meant to be.
Right.
So it was kind of like, well, I don't do this to you, even though it was done to me. It's like, well, is that really the goal?
Yeah.
So I think looking at that and seeing, our Heavenly Father really gives us a perspective of how we'll never be what we need to be, but we should always be striving to be that.
Yeah. And also being able to supply grace, mercy, that kind of thing for our fellow men, or even for myself, like giving myself room to not always succeed or not be the perfect dad. At 16, I had no idea what would happen later on in my life, but at 32, my dad came back into the picture. Actually at a Christmas, the last Christmas my mom was alive. So it was a really neat story, but I actually got to be there when my dad died, which is a completely different story. But I was able to extend forgiveness and love to my dad. And within 10 minutes of my arrival in his room, he passed away. And I'm confident that we had an exchange there that will be it's eternally marked. It's just an amazing story of redemption and healing between the two of us.
Yeah. Forgiveness goes a long way with looking at, maybe your parents or your situation there. In some cases, they probably didn't try at all. In some cases, they tried the best they could. And so,
For sure.
just like us, we all need that grace and mercy. So that's always my favorite question when we ask guys, just because it shows other guys that I didn't come from this like flagship, dad that pushed me and supported me. No, that broken road, is everybody's road. So
yeah, it's a broken road, just like you said, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question is there anything in particular you do helps you or that you approach being that husband, dad, and leader? Is there any process you go through or habits that you do?
Yeah. Great question. I think I'd like to maybe think about those separately. So I'm married to Michelle. We've been married for 23 years now. I learned a lot about myself being married. So I think the first thing is the habit that I tend to keep in mind always is just remaining healthy, having a healthy self-image, a healthy view of my wife, and incurring healthy habits. So communication and that sort of thing has been a real great tool for us to remain emotionally and spiritually healthy.
Awesome.
I think wanting to have children and desiring to have children, and we had a 5-year gap where we did not have children. We tried for 5 years and did not get pregnant, and then we got pregnant, and we got pregnant with triplets. A lot of people ask the question, well, was that natural? And or are they natural? When they were little, we used to take them out. People would say, "Are they natural?" I'm like, "Well, they're certainly not artificial." We did have some medical help with some drugs, but my wife was on a fertility drug, and we wound up getting pregnant. And then one of those eggs split, so we wound up with triplets. So identical girls and a boy is what I have as my set, and they're now 18. So they're about to go off to college in the fall, and so my thing with my children has always been that I've always wanted to be the dad who was available. I knew I wasn't going to be perfect, but I always wanted to be engaged. And engagement is really difficult for men. to stay engaged, because raising kids and having relationships is taxing, and it requires words, and it requires emotion, and it requires so much of oneself to give up to serve my family, and to do the dishes when they need to be done, and clean the kitchen and set the example. And the tone for my household has been key. I think that has been one super overarching theme. But the other is, like, I view my role as both husband and father as really the culture setter for my home. So in other words, like, how are we going to operate as a family? What kinds of things are going to be acceptable here, and what kinds of things are not? What are the values that we want to be known for? How do we want to function? What's important? So all of those questions have been answered and have been part of our process. And the thing that has been the most difficult, I think, is being consistent in all those things, especially as your children at the very youngest ages, they don't really see what's going on, but as they get older, they tend to see everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, they really want to know why you do certain things. They'll ask that question when they're 2 or 3, why? But they really start to understand why when they're in their adolescent age. They won't tell you that, but they know that, hey, if you're the family that gets up on Sundays and goes to church, there's a reason other than, hey, we have nothing better to do. There is a reason for that, especially when they see mom and dad who might be pretty tired or exhausted or whatever, but we're still doing it. Why are we doing it? So I think those are some real keys that I've looked at. The other thing, to be honest, is I had a real struggle like 2 years ago when my kids were 16. That entire year, I think the enemy really played with my head, because it was the year that my dad left me. And I was the youngest of 4 kids. So I kind of have always felt that, like, I would self-destruct or implode or, go crazy or something, like something would happen. And so that entire year, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually very therapeutic to say out loud, because I don't think I'd be alone. You just feel like maybe the patterns of that which your father did, you're going to repeat. And I felt like, I had to really battle through that year to just kind of keep my wits about me, that, like, no, I wasn't going to just self-destruct and short circuit this year, that I was going to actually proceed and be the man that God called me to be. And here I am. It's 2 years later. We're still married. I'm still living at home. All is well. We're about to send them off to college. So I guess things are going pretty well.
That's fantastic.
So you mentioned the area of leadership too, and that's one that is near and dear to my heart, not only just from the perspective of the home, but also with regard to work and things. So it's an area that I feel like most men aspire to. We want to be good leaders, but we just don't know how. And the thing that I would say to everybody out there who might be watching this and just has even the inkling of, like, how do I even become, how do I start doing, how do I start becoming a better leader? And really it's one little piece at a time. You don't eat the elephant all at once. You take it one step at a time, one bite at a time. And so, I think reading is so very important, to just come in contact with other habits and teachings, and become self-aware about your own leadership, and then start implementing those things and seeing who you are change right before your very eyes. I've seen that in my own life. I encourage my staff and the people that I work with to make those changes as well, because I feel like if they know more, they can become more, they can change their life and become even better at the job of leading than they are now.
Well, I think our audience can see why, the blessing of why I asked you to do this interview, because all of that is kind of just woven into, what Uncommon has been trying to do and built on, and content to men, and to see that you can come from a dysfunctional or a broken or a less than perfect past. And I don't say that in a bad way, in the sense that it's your past.
Reality.
Exactly. You can come from that and be better. You can be that man of God that you were always meant to be, reflecting on your past, using that as a tool to help you do things or not do
Yeah.
them. And so as
Yeah.
I was growing up, I coined the phrase anti-role models. And because we have, people say, oh, I had this role model, that role model. And I grew up and I had some anti-role models that there were things I learned I did not want to do that in the future. And so I think those are just as important. Like in business, you probably learn more from a failure than you do a success.
Sure.
We're big Disney fans, and there's a great sign in Disney World from Walt, and it says everybody needs at least one big failure in life, just to learn from it. He said.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I think that everybody goes through something, and in the emails that we get from guys about they're going through a divorce, or they're going through an addiction, or they're just not where they need to be in their walk. And so these interviews are meant to be just that, to show them that everybody's kind of in that same boat. Fortunately, Jesus is in the back of the boat with us, and there's a way that we can grow in that man of God.
I think that what you're saying triggers in my mind just this reality of like bad things happen, and my dad and that whole situation was just one part of my story. There's other bad things that have happened in my life, but I think people get tripped up where those things define them. And I refuse to allow some mistake or something that happened to me to become my identity. My identity is I've shifted my thinking. My identity is found in the person of Jesus Christ and who he says that I am. And that has meant I've had to change my thinking. I've felt I have had an inferiority complex or low self-esteem at different seasons of my life. And I'm certainly not, on the other end of that where I'm walking in pride all the time, but I do feel like I'm grounded in my identity as God's son. And I know that my performance does not make him love me more. It doesn't make him love me less. That inspires me to want to just please him. Am I perfect in that? Absolutely not. Do I struggle? Absolutely. Do I have, have days where I completely fall? Yes. But my identity isn't found in what I'm able to do, how I'm able to perform or not perform. It's found in being accepted as God's son. So if that's an encouragement to somebody out there as we're talking, I feel like somebody out there needs to hear that message and needs to begin living it, because it's one thing to know it in your head, but it's another thing to live it from your heart.
Yes. Amen. Wow. This won't come out until probably maybe middle of June. But someone's going to be blessed with this interview, that kind of feedback. I appreciate that.
Sure, man.
I know that your kids are 18, so I can give you a little bit of that next level. So my youngest son is going to turn 20, and he got married last October.
Really? Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. To a wonderful, godly girl, and her father's a pastor, so he had some. Got to measure up, bro. You got to bring your A game there. He's still in college. He's in his last year. He's ready to start the next semester's last year. And my older son, he is 22. And he just got engaged about a month and a half ago. And he's getting married next May. And so, having seen that transition slowly come along, kind of thing, that empty nest that you're getting ready to experience. One of the things that Dana and I have always done, we met in 5th grade. Our first date was the 9th grade prom.
Wow.
And we dated for 6+ years, engaged, and then we've been married for almost 30. And so she can't shake me. I chase her down. But what we've always done was marriage studies. We probably have done 15, 20 marriage studies in our lives. And so right now we're doing one on Right Now Media from Matt Chandler called Mingling of the Souls. And we watch that, I think, every other Monday night, and we discuss the topics and stuff like that. And it is a really great study. And one of the things we watched last night, and this may be something for you or me, I'm doing it right now, as well as anybody watching this, was to make a list of your wife's strengths and try to become a cheerleader and support those areas. Don't list anything negative, just list the positives, because when you start to make that list, you'll realize how much more positive, great things that your wife has as attributes. And so I've started my list today, and so it changes your perspective of that.
Yeah.
And I think as your kids roll onto the house and become empty nesters, it is a brand new feeling, because it's like I haven't experienced that in almost 20 years. And so it's been wonderful for us. Josh is still here at the house, but he's kind of gone most of the time anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's coming for you after you go to college.
It sure is.
It's a great time. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we're excited about it. We're both have a little trepidation, I suppose, just because, we've lived, the last 18 years, triplets are like not an easy thing to manage, just because there's so much. They're great kids, but there's just always something else to do. So that's the focus a lot of our lives. Not that we've still gone on date nights and things, but we're looking forward to reacclimating at another level, where the kids are not the primary focus of every conversation.
Yeah.
And we've done some things in preparation for this, just for ourselves. So rekindling some hobbies and things, just spending a little time doing certain things together, so that when the kids go, we are already there, in that sense. And, we'll miss them, but also this is what we worked for all of these years. They're ready to launch, and we're ready to send them.
Yeah. Well-rounded, godly children that are going to go out and impact the world.
Absolutely.
So our last question is always a softball kind of thing, make it easy for you. Is there any ministry you're involved with that you want to kind of promote or just share, just in case guys are not aware of it, maybe?
Sure. Well, I work for a ministry that is pretty dear to my heart. I'm a product of Christian education. I went to Christian high school and Christian college, and we found this school 5 years ago for our own children. It's called Arborbrook Christian Academy, and it's an interesting school. Follows the philosophy of somebody named Charlotte Mason, who lived in England back in the 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s, and had some thoughts about children and how they should be schooled. Very interesting. Our kids are outside every day. They're in nature. We have nature study.
Wow.
We provide the children with margin in their lives, so we actually only have school 4 days a week as opposed to 5. And a lot of hands-on experiences with education, rather than just lecture and take notes and study for the test. It's a lot more discussion-based and having kids do projects to understand concepts, rather than just, hey, I write down and I memorized and I didn't answer questions. So we love this school. It's been here for 14 years. We're entering our 15th school year next year. It's K through 12. My kids will graduate from here in actually just about a month, May 25th, or right around May. You can edit that out. Right around May, or they graduate in May. And we're looking forward to seeing what happens with them after that. But the ministry here, we are very excited about what God is going to do for the students here in the future. And it's a pretty neat and interesting place. It's its own little hidden gem here in Charlotte. It has a philosophy that I've not seen functioning in education anywhere else. And I'm really proud of that.
It's fantastic to hear, because we're in a culture of, we're trained to take tests, grade tests. And so we were blessed enough to homeschool both our boys.
Right.
We didn't even know what that meant, 20 years ago. And she's like, I think I feel the Lord, leading us to homeschool. And I'm like, what school?
Right.
And so this is probably back in the late 90s. And where, curriculum has expanded like crazy, and distance
it's
learning.
huge.
Now it's commonplace. taking classes online or at home was still like, what, borderline taboo. What are you, in a cult?
Right.
So what we learned from that process was, there's education that can happen, and it doesn't have to be this, I'm going to stand in front of 30 plus children and lecture and really kind of encourage them to learn to take a test rather than learn material, learn something.
Learn to think. Yeah, exactly. So our goal is actually to create lifelong lovers of learning and of Jesus. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic. We aren't the test heavy, institution where it's all about the tests. We don't do state tests and that sort of thing. We actually don't even give grades until you're in 4th grade. Nice. So you get narratives about habits that you should be implementing before then. But we do live in a culture where you do need to get into college, and your SAT score is pretty important. So we do need to at least address that, but we try to prolong addressing that as long as we can, and try to keep that love of learning in the process. So make it about the actual children. So class size is really important. So it's pretty small around here, where your maximum class in high school is 18. I used to teach in Christian schools, and it would be 25 or 27. And I know there's varying ranges out there, but our class size is very small. Down into kindergarten, it's an 8-to-1 ratio. So that's pretty amazing, to have affordable tuition and yet, give those children the individualized attention that they may need is pretty cool.
That's fantastic. I know that's you, but I would encourage you guys to, think about and pray about how what they teach their children, because you may be in a situation where you can put your child in a school like this to bless them, but you do have the opportunity to pour into them every minute that they're not in that environment. You're at home, on weekends, at night. You have all these opportunities to do what Andy and his team are doing, making people lovers of learning and then lovers of Christ. And so,
amen.
It's great.
Amen.
Well, brother, I want to thank you again for taking time today. What a blessing it's been to hear your feedback. I'm sure the guys that hear this message are going to be blessed as well. If there's everything we can do for you, please let us know. And,
thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity just to be able to share my heart. I love doing it, and hopefully the guys feel encouraged and really feel challenged to realize that you don't have to be a rock star. Everybody has their story and their stuff behind every curtain. So just keep moving forward and bless the Lord as you do so.
Amen. Amen. Well, Uncommon, as you can see, there are guys out there in the gap. You are one of them. So this interview is going to be in the membership group. So if you have not joined yet to the membership group, please do so. If you have, be on the lookout for this interview and more just like it. All right, guys, stay uncommon, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.